Whom the Gods Fear, by Wdowski. Chapter 39. As word spread of the Amphithar's breaking and running, the Aerschwa peasants gave out an alien cheer. You did it, Mr. Jaeger. When we ran out of energy packs, I thought we were done for. But your wire held them in check. Mayhan gave a nervous smile and came running up the stairs to see for herself the fleeing army. She wrapped her arms around Glen and kissed him on his lips. I knew you could do it. I wouldn't be celebrating yet. Glen added cold water to both their rejoicing. We are not out of this yet. We must have cut down over 2,000. Mayhan responded, surveying the dead and dying left behind by the fleeing enemy army. Mahan's smile turned suddenly to an expression of concern. They're stopping. Stopping. And in disbelief looked out to see for herself. Why are they stopping? They are reforming their ranks on the ridges. They are rallying. Mayhan answered. This is not over. Glen explained. The Amphithars will not break that easily. They will fight to the death. Their withdrawal was not a full rout. They didn't retreat out of fear. They withdrew because they could not advance any further to bring the fight to their enemy. They will fight to the death, but they will not just throw away their lives for no reason. They did break, Mr. Jaeger. They were running. Mayhan pointed out. Did any of them drop their weapons as they fled to the safety of the ridges? No, they didn't. Mayhan knew that men truly broken would drop their arms as they fled, choosing flight over fight. According to your satellite surveillance, has any fled further than their original lines? No, Mr. Jaeger. I am detecting only single riders going out in all directions. The main army is reforming battle lines from where they started their advance. He is getting more troops. He will refill his ranks, replacing those he lost today. This is not over. Demi will figure out a way to get through the wire. The next time they assault us, the wire will not stop them. It will take days for him to replace those he lost today. Mayhan answered. Yes, giving us the much-needed time for the Polo to finish her repairs and also giving Demi time to assemble siege works. We are now in a race for time that we must win. Captain Rubel finally walked onto his bridge. Maintenance bots and ship's technicians were busily working on repairs. They still did not have the 3D printers working. They had to actually take apart the communication system to use the components to repair the links to the backup hard drives for the 3D printers. Repairs were taking much longer than Rubel had hoped, and now they had no way of communicating with those on the surface. Rubel sat in his command chair and stared at the main view screen, which was blank, without any images. On the windowless bridge without a functioning main view screen gave the odd feeling that he was on a movie set, not on a starship orbiting a moon around an alien gas giant. Captain, we won't have helm control for at least another day or two. The 3D printers will not be able to produce the parts we need fast enough, reported Chief Engineer Wdowski, approaching his captain. Our sensors, weapon systems. All the science teams are on the surface along with a quarter of my engineers and technicians. Counting our dead and wounded from the attack, I am operating with a minimum repair crew. If not for the maintenance bots, we would be way over our heads. Do we at least have communications with the surface yet? Not yet, Captain. Soon, I hope. Get to it, Wdowski. Aye, Captain. Demi's Amphithars pulled back behind the ridges overlooking the fortified Aroth farm. Demi did not plan to assault them the next day. His army, badly bloodied, made camp and licked its wounds. Scavenger parties spread out to the surrounding farms and brought in wagons of flour, grain, vegetables, edible roots, and herds of domestic alien animals for the roasting spits. From a homestead the following night, they could make out the glow of fires just on the opposite side of the ridges. Each night the glows grew brighter as more Amphithar from all directions arrived, swelling Demi's army. He has already replaced those he had lost the day before. More are heading this way according to our satellite surveillance of the surface. Mayhan reported to Glen at the dining table. Aroth sat with him along with Dr. Hogan, Stovall, and Flowara to translate for her father. How many more? Glen asked. It looks like another 10,000, but he has riders spreading out even further. They seem to be heading for all the nearest city-states and the regions that surround them. If he waits for them all to arrive, I think we have at least another 10 days before he attempts another attack. That is if he waits to make his assault until all of them arrive. And no word from the Polo yet. Glen worried that their damage may be much more severe than first reported. No, Mr. Yeager, no word from them yet. My understanding is they needed to use elements of their communications system to re-establish a link with the backup computer banks. All the specs on those banks are needed for 3D printers to make replacement parts. Yes, I am aware of that, Captain. Glen acknowledged, still frustrated by the lack of contact with the ship. There is one other important thing. There has been a lot of activity in the forest nearby. They are felling many trees and hauling the lumber to the camp to the north of us. They set up large tents preventing us from seeing what they are constructing with the lumber. Siege machines. If so, they would be made only of wood. Our pulse plasma rifles can take them out before they could wheel any of them into range. I am confident our walls will be quite safe. I really do not see the point of them constructing siege weapons. Captain Demi must know this. Mahan responded. Could they be building cannon? I think old black powder cannon could hit us, beyond the range of our pulse rifles, no. They could, but it would take at least 3 weeks for them to forge cannons, and their blacksmiths have no experience in their construction. I doubt Demi knows how to anyway. Glen answered. The time it takes to make cannons that won't blow up in your face the first time you use them is not that easy. Is the main reason I didn't have us try to manufacture any ourselves. I did think about it, but realized we would not have the time for their proper construction. I do not think Demi wants to wait that long either. He must know the more time he gives us, the more chances we can make our repairs and escape. I am sure it is not cannon. Mahan shook his head. How do you know all this stuff? I taught a course in the history of invention and technology once. Glen explained. Best way to learn something is to have to teach it. Believing Yeager, Mahan seemed more confident. That is good news then. Since he does control the surrounding hills, it would be easy for him to bombard us into submission with even basic low-tech artillery. Whatever he is planning, I think we can safely assume his next assault will concentrate from the north. How can you know that? And asked Glen. I am only assuming. I do not really know, of course, but since they are moving the lumber to their northern camps to construct whatever they are constructing, I think it is a good guess his main assault will be against our north wall. If only I had brought the rackers down to the surface with us. Mayhem blamed himself. Yes, Rupel autonomous combat all-terrain robots would be able to handle an army of 250,000 Amphithars. If we did have them, it would be him under siege, not us. Is there any way the Polo can get them down to us? And asked. The shuttles are the only way. Mahan answered. Or escape pods, that is, if the Polo had been equipped with escape pods. What about probes? Load them on board a probe and send them down to us. I assume they do not need life support. And threw out the suggestion. That is true, they don't. Glen looked to Mahan for an answer. They would never fit in a probe. We would need the shuttles to ferry them down. And if we had the shuttles to do that, we could use them to just leave and return to the Polo. There would be no need to bring them down. Glen pointed out. The probes are only good enough to send down the parts we need to repair the shuttles. If we can get at least one shuttle repaired, we can start ferrying people out of here. The shuttle could then bring down rackers when it returns to pick more of us up. And suggested. Yes, it could. Mahan replied, one empty shuttle could carry at least 4 of them down. Even 4 would make a great difference against what we are facing now, or anything else Demi threw at us. This is all just wishful thinking. As long as we are out of communications with the Polo, none of this helps us. Glen looked at them all around the table. We need to figure out how to prepare for whatever Demi is planning to throw at us. What of your spy flies? He looked to Captain Mahan. Demi's men have already put them all out of commission. He was able to track them down and literally used fly swatters to knock them out. They must have used their 4 arm comms to pick up the spy fly's electronics. Glen guessed. But we still have the satellite surveillance. Yes, but it seems Demi is aware now that we do. He has been making a great effort to camouflage his actions from our orbiting eyes. For example, the large work tents they have put up in their northern camp. Is there any way we can find out what they are building under those tents? Glen asked, frustrated. Flowara had translated everything they had been saying to her father as best she could. Of course, many of the technical things they discussed she was unable to explain to him. But she did understand their desire to want to see what was under those tents. Her father spoke, Flowara translated for him. My father says that he might know a way.